Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Look North, our top story tonight. Yorkshire schools prepare for the first major teacher strike in 6 years. We'll look at the impact here and have advice for parents.
We need to look after teachers. We need to fund our schools properly, and we need to make children a priority rather than bankers.
Now, the government is keen that schools do remain open, but talks have broken down this evening. Also tonight, a former South Yorkshire police officer tells us she was raped by a colleague and failed by the force. The founder of the Leeds Carnival becomes the first black person to have their portrait displayed at Harewood House. And poor little pups. We'll find out which of these 3 Yorkshire finalists have won Britain's ugliest dog.
A windy, often mild week to come across Yorkshire. Join me for that detailed week ahead forecast.
Hello, I hope you're well on this Monday evening. Thousands of teachers across our region are preparing to strike after talks between the government and unions ended without agreement this afternoon. The National Education Union says most schools will be affected on Wednesday. The union is calling for teachers' pay rises, agreed last year, to be funded separately rather than coming out of schools' existing budgets. Wednesday's strike will be the first of 7 days of industrial action. Cathy Killick has been to one school in West Yorkshire to find out how they're preparing.
Queensway Primary in Yeadon is a school that was facing closure, but a strong campaign by parents and staff have saved it, partly because it serves a deprived area. Wednesday's industrial action will see about half the teaching staff on strike, so the head is planning accordingly.
It's been, I suppose, about trying to ask the teachers if they're willing to share, whether they'll be striking or not. So we've got a rough idea of the staffing that we'll have in the building. And then from that, we've had to look at our risk assessments and look at the staffing that we've got to know that we can provide education for as many children as we can safely.
The school will be open for its more vulnerable children. Teacher Jack Swanson will be working, but respects the views of colleagues who'll be on strike.
Rugby whiteboard and look this way. Well done, everybody. Good job. I'm choosing not to strike on Wednesday because of financial reasons, really. I can't really afford not to come to work. And we are open as well for our vulnerable and disadvantaged pupils. And I think it's really important, actually, that those children do still have somewhere where they can come and still get an education and still, we know that they're safe and looked after.
But as school budgets are squeezed, other staff support the strikes as a means for change.
The teachers know what's best for the children, and the decline in funding over the past few years has really impacted on the children's education. And to try and make a difference and make their voices heard in Westminster, saying we need to look after teachers, we need to fund our schools properly, and we need to make children a priority rather than bankers.
With half the children having to stay at home on Wednesday, working parents face a problem. So what do they think of the strike?
There's loads of people that don't get paid fairly, and if people don't make a stand, no one will ever get done about it.
I work from home, so, don't get me wrong, sympathise with other parents that will have that problem, but, it's the whole point of a strike, and it's to cause disruption.
I do support the strikes. I'm a postal worker, so, yeah, I definitely support the strikes.
Disruption because of COVID has been a feature of this generation's education. But with industrial unrest now looming, stability still seems a long way off. Cathy Killick, BBC Look North, Yeadon.
Well, we did ask to speak to a government minister about the strikes, but no one was available. The Department for Education has called the action highly damaging and said they are supporting school leaders to keep as many pupils in class as possible. So how are head teachers preparing for Wednesday's strike? I've been speaking to Pepe Diazio. He's from Wales High School near Rotherham.
So we normally have about 250 staff in school on a normal day. We're aware that at least 40 or 50 of those have already committed and informed us that they're on strike. And then there will be others who have yet to tell us and will not be turning up on the day. So we've had to make arrangements based on the fact that maybe up to 80 staff will be on strike on Wednesday.
And so how will you cover the classes that are in?
We've sent a letter to our parents today to let them know that the vast majority of students will be learning from home. We've set work for every single year group across every single subject, and we've asked children to make sure that they're prepared to work virtually from home throughout the entire day. We'll be open to school for some students that are sitting exams in the sixth form on Wednesday, and as well as that, we'll be having students in who have told us that they're in because they are children of critical workers, or perhaps the most vulnerable that need support because of a health and care plan throughout the day.
Just remind our viewers why teachers are going on strike.
Well, I think this strike has been 10 years in the making, Amy. We've seen 10 years of underfunded pay increases that haven't been supported by central government. And I think many teachers, particularly new teachers to the profession, are finding it very hard to see why they'd become a teacher and what that is for them actually as a career. And so recruitment's been very hard, retention of staff is hard, and we've seen targets from the government not been met over the last 10 years.
The government says 40% of teachers will receive a pay rise of up to 16% this year. They say strike action is highly disruptive. What's your response to that?
Well, I think that in education we say there are lies, damn lies, and statistics, and you can use those statistics in whatever way you wish. What we are seeing is a recruitment crisis in the profession, and we simply cannot get enough specialist teachers into the profession right now.
You will be on school on Wednesday. Do you support your staff who won't be in?
I've done my best to walk that tightrope to make sure that we fully support the staff, but my priority is to the health and safety and to the education of the young people. And we've tried to make sure that we minimise any turbulence for them. They've seen enough unsettlement in the last 2 years, and we need to make sure that they get a decent education throughout this day, and perhaps for the future days that the planned action is looking at over the next month or so.
Very briefly, what has the response been from parents, and what is your advice to them? Because many will be trying to find childcare right now.
I totally understand the challenge that parents are going to have. Our parents in our community have been very supportive. I think they understand the difficulties that teachers are facing and how they've got to this point that they don't want to be at. And what we want to do is minimise any fuss for them and make sure that the children get the best possible education on that day.
Pepe Diasio, thanks for your time. Now, have you got any questions about this week's strike action and what it means for you? Then please do get in touch. Are you worried about taking time off work to cover childcare, for example? You can email us at look.north@bbc.co.uk or send us a message to BBC Yorkshire on Facebook. We look forward to hearing from you. Next tonight, a former South Yorkshire police officer who says she was raped by a fellow officer has told Look North that she believes her force has failed her. The woman, who cannot be named, said the accused officer was not suspended while the allegation was investigated. South Yorkshire Police says that when officers and staff behave in ways which do not reflect their high standards, they robustly and thoroughly investigate each and every report. David Rhodes has more.
I used to be such a bubbly person, but the whole process, it's just destroyed me.
Diana, which is not her real name, is a former South Yorkshire police officer. She says she was raped by a fellow officer in 2008, but her complaint was not taken seriously.
The rape investigation was honestly more horrific than what that male officer actually did to me.
Diana reported the alleged rape in 2016 to South Yorkshire Police after she'd been treated for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Throughout the whole process, I just felt as if there was this attitude of, you're a police officer, shake yourself down and get on with it. I just wasn't believed.
Look North has seen Crown prosecution documents from 2016 that state that the officer who allegedly attacked Diana was arrested and questioned by the police. However, a CPS lawyer said there was not enough evidence to bring charges in this case.
So to be clear, the officer who allegedly attacked you, he was arrested and questioned by South Yorkshire Police, but at no point was he suspended from his job.
No, he was never suspended.
In response to allegations made in this report, South Yorkshire Police told us it's committed to continually improving our handling of cases involving serving officers. When officers and staff behave in ways which do not reflect our high standards, we robustly and thoroughly investigate each and every report and launch criminal investigations as required. Diana and the officer she claims attacked her no longer work for South Yorkshire Police. The former officer claims other colleagues are being silenced from talking about their experiences.
I've spoken to other female officers in South Yorkshire who've been sexually abused by colleagues, but they just won't come forward because they've just got absolutely no confidence in the system.
The Home Secretary this month said a government-commissioned review would seek to establish whether police officers are failing to report allegations against their colleagues.
Friend raises, and that is exactly what part 2 of the Lady Angelini inquiry will cover: police culture and whether there is a culture of fear, whether people are scared to speak up and call out unacceptable behaviour.
Diana says she's spoken out publicly to encourage current serving officers to share their experiences, whilst a national review of policing is currently underway. David Rhodes, BBC Look North, South Yorkshire.
Let's take a look at some other stories coming into our newsroom now. A man from Barnsley has been found guilty of the murder of his baby son. 9-week-old Hunter Matthias collapsed and stopped breathing at home in November 2018. He died in hospital 3 days later. Sheffield Crown Court heard his father, Leon Matthias, had suffered a momentary loss of control and inflicted catastrophic injuries on his son. He's due to be sentenced on Thursday. People living in a tower block in Sheffield won't have to leave after an evacuation order was lifted. South Yorkshire Fire and Rescue had served a notice to quit on the Wicker Riverside flats because of concerns about fire safety, but that's now been withdrawn after the management company made progress with building work. More work is planned for the next few months, which means tenants will be able to stay living in their flats. The record label EMI has announced it's opening a new northern branch in Leeds. EMI represents huge artists including Taylor Swift, Paul McCartney and Elton John. The company says its new label EMI North will support the best local talent in the north and provide young people with opportunities to work in the music industry. It's already teamed up with Leeds-based independent label, Clue Records. Now, from today, journalists will be able to report on what they see and hear in family courts in Leeds. These courts have significant powers because they can order that children are taken into care or decide whether they should where they should live. 500,000 people use the system every year, but it's been criticised as secretive. The BBC's Sanchia Berg has reported widely on family courts, and she joins us now from Leeds, which is one of the 3 courts trying out this new approach. Sanchia, just talk us through what's changed today.
Well, it is a really significant change because what has happened from today is that journalists like me and colleagues from Look North and elsewhere can go into family courts. We can report what we see and hear in those courts. We can get access to key documents. We can interview families, but as long as in all of that we preserve their anonymity, because these are cases hearing often very intimate details of people's lives. We will, though, be able to, for example, identify local authorities who are trying to take children into care, but it's the families whose identities we have to be very careful of. This is happening, as you said, I think, in Leeds and 2 other places. It's an experiment. It'll last 12 months. If it's considered successful, it could be extended across England and Wales, and it's starting today with care cases. That's cases where local authorities here in Leeds and the surrounding area are applying to take children into care.
And what can these changes mean for families that are going through the system?
Well, over the years, many families have contacted me saying they wish there'd been a reporter in the courtroom during their case because they say they weren't fairly treated, they believe there was some injustice done, and they wish there was some way they could be held to account. There was some kind of scrutiny. But actually, when it comes to it, when you're in these courts, parents are often extremely anxious about what's happening and nervous of the press. So it'll take a bit of getting used to on all sides, I think.
It's been criticised in the past for being quite secretive. You've been in court today. Can you give us a sense of some of the cases that have been heard?
Well, I can't tell you about everything that I've heard because we're still waiting for permission to report on some of it. But I can tell you, for example, that we were present in an emergency hearing where Bradford Council had made an application for an interim care order for a very young baby. And that hearing we observed, we've taken notes, we want to report it more fully in future, but it's just a little example of the kind of thing that happens every day here in the family courts.
Great insights, Antia. Thank you so much for your time. Next tonight to the remarkable story of Arthur France. He's the founder of the Leeds West Indian Carnival and campaigner for social justice. Now, Arthur has become the first person of African Caribbean heritage to have a portrait in Harewood House near Leeds. His image is the first of a new series of works intended to make Harewood more reflective of modern communities. There's also a new exhibition telling Arthur's life story, as Abby Giola reports.
This is the portrait itself, just in here. So
this portrait of Arthur France is the centrepiece of a new exhibition about his life in one of the grandest houses in Yorkshire. Harewood was built from a fortune made from sugar plantations worked by slaves, a painful history that the current Earl and Countess are not afraid to address.
It's easy to come to Harewood and to think that the only history here is of the Lascelles family, the money they made, what they bought and what they did with it. But actually, of course, the history of places like this is much more complicated than that.
There were no portraits of West Indian heritage people in this collection, and given Harewood's history and what those people contributed to that history, we felt that this was an acknowledgement and a recognition of that community.
Oh gosh, that's a nice one.
There's also a temporary exhibition designed to look like the front room in the France family home. It tells Arthur's life story through pictures and artefacts.
It's fantastic, it's great.
He's well known as the founder of Leeds West Indian Carnival, but Arthur's also spent decades campaigning for equality and was awarded an MBE in 1997 for his services to the community.
Black community in Chapeltown, I'm very passionate about that black community. When I see black people in distress, I find it very painful.
Born on the island of Nevis in 1935, Arthur came to Leeds when he was 21. He's now a father of 3 and a grandfather of 9. A new biography is launched today and he hopes it'll resonate with younger generations.
Parents come say to me, I've got 3 children and they're buying each one of them a book because they want them to know that this is what he done. Somebody who you know.
Arthur's daughter Mahalia helped put the new exhibition together.
We always knew about his views and his activisms when we were children, and we also went along to a lot of the protests that he went to, handing out leaflets about a school or something that was boycotting produce from South Africa. Carnival is one element, but my dad's life and his legacy is much greater than that.
Arthur's image will one day sit alongside images of the Harewoods' aristocratic ancestors, and he hopes his life will continue to inspire. Abby Giola, BBC Look North.
I'm sure it will. Moving on to sport now. The 4th round of the FA Cup. Sheffield United narrowly avoided a huge upset yesterday in their game against non-league Wrexham. It was an exciting match on the field, I'm told, but it was more off the pitch that got my interest. A little bit of Hollywood sparkle, Sally.
Absolutely, yes. How is this for a Hollywood drama? Sheffield United, who are second in the Championship, faced non-league side Wrexham in a classic David versus Goliath FA Cup draw. And watching the game was Wrexham co-owner and movie star Ryan Reynolds. The Blades took an early lead with a header from Ollie McBurney, but in the second half there was no sticking to the script, with Wrexham going 3-2 ahead with this goal from Paul Mullin. But then a final plot twist. 5 minutes into injury time, John Egan levelled things up for United. 3-3 the final score, and a replay at Bramall Lane awaits.
No, we billed as a potential banana skin, and we know why, because Wrexham are a very good team and they can cause problems where they are, and then the occasion, the owners. It's been a bit like a circus, you know, with the cameras and things, which is good because there's not been many FA Cup ties I've been involved in. Playing or managing, which has had this sort of feel, you know. I think to everyone involved it felt a little bit different.
Elsewhere in the FA Cup fourth round, Leeds United's game against Accrington Stanley went more to plan, with Leeds winning 3-1. Junior Firpost scored his first goal for United with an assist from Patrick Bamford. The win means Leeds progress to the FA Cup fifth round for the first time since 2016. Meanwhile, Sheffield Wednesday will replay Fleetwood after a 1-1 draw at Hillsborough. It was an own goal from Fleetwood's Josh Earl under pressure from Malik Wilkes that got Wednesday their second-half equaliser. The draw for the fifth round of the FA Cup will take place on the One Show at 7 o'clock tonight. Next, sportswomen in our region have been speaking out about how difficult it can be to get hold of well-fitting sports kit. With many designed for men, some women are resorting to wearing hand-me-downs or even children's sizes. But with women's sport growing in popularity, could things be getting better? Beth Parsons reports.
Football's pretty much been my sort of whole life. I can't really imagine life before it.
Gender equality in sport is getting better. But when it comes to the accessibility of equipment, some women in Yorkshire think there are still some points to be scored.
I'd often find that kit was generally too big for me. Got shorts going like right down to your knees and stuff, constantly rolling over at the waist. It's just not the most comfortable. Women have quite small feet, and it would be great to buy women's boots, which do exist, but they're not that mainstream at the moment or yet. And so I do end up buying child sizes.
And from a physiological aspect, if you're not wearing the right stuff, you're increasing the chance of an injury.
The biomechanics and the movement could be a little bit different. You're more than likely going to sustain sort of slips and rolls from a loss of balance. And quite often that can lead to ligament damage in particular.
And what about other sports? From football to cricket.
It can really impact your general performance in terms of like running between the wickets if things are not fitted correctly to you as a person or they're too big. Like generally females are a little bit smaller than males, so being able to have equipment that fits females correctly is really important.
You always get the hand-me-downs. There was occasionally where I turned up to the training and it was like big pads, big gloves, and it's just like, well, this is me. You feel out of place in a little bit kind of thing. You're playing in a men's world, so I think it's really nice to be able to have our own kit.
But things are getting better. A company based in Silsden is one of few designing cricket kit specifically for girls and women.
Right, that's the ladies' leg pad, and then this is the men's. As a coach, I would have young girls come in to play cricket, and normally it would be hand-down pads from dad, same with gloves and quite heavy bats. So way back then, I knew that it was impacting on that child's performance.
This is a perfect opportunity.
The girls at this training session in Headingley now have access to proper pads and better bats, and it's making a difference.
I've worn boys' pads all growing up, so having been able to wear girls' pads is a lot more different, more comfortable more than anything.
Yeah, I used to use my brother's old ones and they were always a bit big for me, but now getting my own size ones, so it helps a lot.
Part of it's safety, you know you're not going to get hurt when you're wearing it. It's just a bit of reassurance so that you can bat better and you just feel better generally.
Using the feet.
So with the changes in motion, it looks like the next generation of sportswomen are getting closer to gender equality as they take their turn stepping up to the wicket. Beth Parsons, BBC Look North, Leeds.
And about time too. And just time to mention that the transfer window closes tomorrow and Leeds United have flown over Juventus midfielder Weston McKennie today ahead of an anticipated loan deal. The American player would be the third signing for Leeds this window, and in Italy he's almost as famous for his pet dogs as his football, and if he makes his new home here in Yorkshire, the dogs of course would be coming too. Amy.
Aww, cute dog, isn't it? Pretty
Yeah.
dog, I'd say. Cute, lovely blue eyes.
Yes, a very beautiful dog.
And keeping with the theme of dogs.
I feel like we may be going on to some
Yeah,
other
we are.
ones.
How did you guess? That was so smooth, wasn't it? Congratulations are in order for a dog with a face that only a mother could love. Oh, take a look at this. Peggy! She's the pug Chinese crested cross. She's been named the UK's ugliest dog. She lives in East Yorkshire with her owner Holly Middleton. Now the 5-year-old has become somewhat of a celebrity since entering the competition, appearing several times on national TV. She's won a makeover session and a trip to a doggy spa.
I mean, I was thrilled. It's always nice to win something, but it's a bit of a strange one being called ugly, and that's what you win in a competition for. But she don't know. She thinks she's beautiful. doesn't affect her.
Ah, a doggy spa. Has Dave ever been to one of them?
Well, I wouldn't have thought so. He has a groom once every 6 weeks.
He's beautiful enough,
He has
is
a
he?
shampoo and a set, and he has his toenails clipped, and that's about the best
Sounds
of it.
quite luxurious.
I thought Peggy was really cute, did you? Reminded me a bit about you on after a Friday night out.
Dog ugly.
Right, shall we have a look at a couple of pictures, because they are very, very nice, and the first one is fabulous. Lenticular clouds, Alticumulus lenticularis, that was spotted right across North Yorkshire this weekend. The second picture is snowdrops. That's Mulgrave Castle at Sands End, a lovely part of the world, and this was a sky that was spotted in Sheffield by The Wild Garden. Keep the pictures coming in on Twitter, Instagram, and on the Weather Watcher website. So the headline for tomorrow is one of plenty of sunshine. Actually, lots of blue sky. Most of us will be dry, apart from 1 or 2 showers across the Yorkshire Dales. I think the main feature of the weather over the next few days will be the strength of the wind, particularly windy Tuesday night into Wednesday. This little warm front's important because it will introduce much milder air during Thursday, Friday and the weekend, where temperatures across some eastern areas may be up to 12 or 13 degrees Celsius. Now you can see the clearance on the satellite picture this afternoon. Overnight though, we'll see a lot of cloud pushing down from the northwest. There's a weak cold front bringing some patchy rain and drizzle just for a time, but amounts will be small. The clearance coming back in to North Yorkshire later tonight. It should be frost-free, too much breeze for any problems. 4 Celsius in York is 39 Fahrenheit. And so tomorrow's high water times in Scarborough at 12:22, Bridlington at 1:15. So patchy rain first thing in the morning, soon out of the way. I think by the time the sun rises, we're back to blue skies and sunshine. Just a hint that there could be 1 or 2 showers, maybe across the Yorkshire Dales, but very isolated features. Most of us will be dry. And once again, the best of tomorrow's sunshine will be across central and eastern parts of Yorkshire. Temperatures coming in at around about 9 Celsius. That's 48 Fahrenheit with a blustery west wind. Let's have a look at the further out then. Wednesday looks cloudy and windy. There'll be a little patchy rain or drizzle, mainly across more northern and western parts of our region. Thursday looks cloudy, a bit of drizzle for a time. Then you see that milder air coming in Thursday, Friday into the weekend. Some spots across eastern areas knocking on the door of 13. That's the forecast.
Let's take another look at Peggy, shall we?
Yes, definitely.
I think we'll let our viewers decide who she most looks like. Oh, little Peggy, that's
She's lovely.
Lovely. That's it from us. Good night.